Hey YouTube, Week here, bringing you all an update to my Batteryman Yugioh deck profile for September 2023. I've been wanting to update the Batteryman deck for a good while now. It's been over a year since the last update, and with it being one of my favorite Thunder decks for the Yu-Gi-Oh typing, it definitely has a fun playstyle. It's been a deck I've played in Duel Links, and I think all it takes is just me mentioning it that we definitely do need some new Batteryman support for us to potentially, get some. So whether we get some, whether it be before I make this video or upload it, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But until then, we'll make do with what we have for the deck. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the Batteryman numbers, we do run a good number of 3-ofs for all the Batteryman cards, just because they all work very, very well together, even if you have a good number of them in your hand. So we are running 3 copies of Batteryman 9-volt. When summoned, you can add 1 Batteryman monster from your deck to your hand. If you do, this attack and defense of this card become double until it's just double, and then at the end of the turn you destroy this card. So it's not till the end of the turn, because obviously it's going to be destroyed at the end, but still it's a great searcher, just being able to add one of the more vital Batteryman cards off of this card to then fully utilize it on the field. We're also running 3 copies of Batteryman Solar. With this card, when it's normal or special summon, you can send 1 Thunder monster from your deck to the graveyard. If a Thunder monster is normal or special summon while this one's on the field, you can special summon 1 Batteryman token, Thunder, level 1, light, attack and defense both 0, and you can target a Batteryman effect monster you control, or in your graveyard, this card's name becomes that monster's until the end phase. So that mostly works with the other Batteryman like AAA or AA that we're not running in the deck. Solar is great for just setting up other Batteryman in our graveyard, which we can then special summon back onto the field with our spells like Battery Charger, and then also just being able to summon out another Batteryman to give us a Batteryman token on the field means that we can use that other monster or even the Solar and the token to summon out some needed Link monsters to continue our plays. And we're also running 3 copies of Batteryman Microcell. While flip summoning is a slower setup in a lot of decks, it definitely does help, since your opponent will want to either destroy the Microcell on the field or, potentially risk attacking into it, giving you the special summon of a level 4 or lower Batteryman monster, so either the Solar or the 9-volt we mentioned before. And then after this card has been flipped face up, when it's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you draw a card. So if they flip it up through an attack, you get the special summon, and then when Microcell destroyed in that battle, you'll get an additional draw. So you'll have the potential send and search off of the 9-volt or the Solar that you summon onto the field, and then the additional draw off the Microcell. Also 3 copies of Batteryman Charger. When this card is normal summon, you can special summon 1 Batteryman monster except Charger from your hand or deck. This card gains 300 attack and defense for each Thunder type monster you control. So just being normal summon means we can use other cards like the Monarch Storm 4th to summon out this card using our opponent's resources as well, and then gain that additional special summon of another Batteryman monster. If you use Charger to special summon out 9-volt, you can then use 9-volt to search out our next target, which can then just be easily special summoned onto the field, which is our Batteryman Fuel Cell, which we're also running 3 copies of. If you control 2 or more face-up Batteryman monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, and once per turn you can tribute 1 Batteryman monster except this card to select 1 card your opponent controls and return to the owner's hand. So if you have multiple Fuel Cells in your hand, you can special summon out 1 and then tribute out another monster that may be on your field to balance a card your opponent controls, then special summon out the other Fuel Cell, tributing the Batteryman Fuel Cell that already used the card effect for that other Fuel Cell that you summoned out. It's not a restriction on the once per turn being a soft once per turn, and as long as you have the 2 to special summon out, you can summon out continuous numbers of Fuel Cell onto the field also. For the last of the Batteryman monsters, 2 copies of Industrial Strength. This is our Blackluster Soldier Envoy of the Chaos for the deck. It cannot be normal summoned or set. It cannot be special summoned except by banishing 2 Batterymen from your graveyard. Once per turn, you can banish 1 Thunder-type monster from your graveyard to destroy 1 monster and 1 spell or trap on the field. So a good way to clear out some other cards your opponent may have. I'll only run the 2 though, because you can search it off of 9-volt. You just need to have the Thunder set up in your graveyard, which thanks to the use of Link monsters can be easily done, getting our Link 2 and the 2 monsters needed in the graveyard for us to then banish for our Industrial Strength to be summoned onto the field. With the last of the Main deck monsters being 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, just hand trap of choice to have a little bit more play style on our opponent's turn, using this card if they go first against us as just a way to shut down any of their searches and setups they may try to do. And moving on now to the spells, I run 3 copies of Battery Charger. You pay 500 life points to special summon 1 monster from your graveyard that has Batteryman in its card name. So this comes in handy with the setup with Batteryman Solar, because you can use Batteryman Solar to send that Batteryman to the graveyard, use Battery Charger to special summon it back onto the field. Solar will activate, special summoning out your Batteryman token, and then from there you were given 3 monsters on the field thanks to just the 2 cards you had, and then being able to use those 2 monsters to go for an additional Link Summon. I also run 3 copies of Short Circuit. You activate this only if you control 3 or more Batteryman monsters. Destroy all cards your opponent controls. So if you get that token with Solar, you can then just activate your Short Circuit and destroy all cards your opponent has on the field, and then have a pretty big number of monsters to then swing at your opponent for some pretty heavy damage as well. I also run 3 copies of the Monarch Storm Forth, just a great quick play spell to run. Once during this turn, if you attribute a monster or monsters you control for a tribute summon, you can tribute 1 monster your opponent controls as if you controlled it. You can only activate 1 Storm Forth per turn, and during the turn you activate this, you cannot special summon the monsters from the extra deck. So while it does lock you out of the extra deck, it's really not a problem, because thanks to a good majority of our Batteryman cards, we have a good number of plays to rely on to at least take out our opponent's cards without having to rely on the extra deck. And you can even activate this during your opponent's turn for that disruption of any monsters they may have also. I also run 2 copies of Pot of Desires, since we run a good number of 3-ofs in the deck. Depending on what we banish, as long as we still have that 1 resource, it's really not the end of the world if we banish some of them off of the top 10. And the consistency of just being able to get 2 cards in your hand is a big plus with Pot of Desires, just needing those for extra resources. And for the 1-ofs, for the spells, the 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster for more back row clearing, because board setup is very important in the deck. 1 Call by the Grave, along with 1 Monster Reborn and the 1 Foolish Burial to finish off the rest of the 1-of spells. Foolish Burial just being great graveyard setup, and Monster Reborn just continuing your resources to special summon back out onto the field. For the traps, our trap lineup consists of just being able to get more and more monsters on the field. So 3 copies of Call the Haunted and 2 Back to the Front. Whether you use either one of these cards to get a Solar or 9-volt summoned onto the field at the end of the turn, you get the Search off of that card. Granted, the 9-volt will be destroyed, but you'll still have the Search that this card added, and then potentially a Graveyard Special Summon for the next turn as well. That's why I like summoning out the 9-volt on the end of the turn, because if you have another card that can special summon, you can always use your Call the Haunted or your Back to the Front on your opponent's turn, and then save your Battery Chargers for the same play during your own. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. I run the 1 copy of Some Summer Summoner. You need 2 Thunder monsters once per turn. Quick effect. You can, per your opponent's turn, discard 1 card, then target 1 Thunder monster in your graveyard, except a Link monster, and special summon it to his own discard points to. So just having an option on your opponent's turn to, once again, get your 9-volt onto the field to give you more searches for you to add to your hand means you could also potentially add off of Some Summer Summoner the needed monster for the Tribute Summon if you were to use your Monarch Storm Forth on your opponent's turn, not having that resource needed, but needing to search it out before you can do so. And also the 1 copy of Yugioh for the micro sell option if you have to, flip summon this card to begin with, giving your special summon and search for your needed Batteryman monster, and then just needing a way to get the cards to the graveyard if you wanted more of a protection card on the field, and then have those Batteryman in the graveyard for you to banish for your Industrial Strength that you searched off of the 9-volt. And then also the 1 Hippo Shenengan, the 1 Lena the Light Charmer, the 1 IP Masquerena, and the 1 Underclock Taker for the lower Link monsters, and also the 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn and the 1 Apollosa for the rest of the Link monsters. And for the Xyz monsters, the 1 copy of Bujinte Tsukuyomi for the draw power it provides, 1 Ptolemy M7 for the bounce power and just being able to overlay 2 fuel cells to make this card, the 1 Exciton Knight along with the 1 Gaga Cowboy and the 1 Baguska for the other rank 4s we could potentially use, and the 1 copy of Abyss Dweller and the 1 Divine Arsenal Zeus to finish off the remainder of the Xyz monsters for the extra deck. As for some of the go-to plays in the deck, as I said before, a lot of the search and setup just revolves around having the resources needed to summon out a good number of monsters on the field. So with that play and search in mind, Microcell is definitely one of your better setups. It does cost a turn to wait for that summon, but depending on the protection you have, one of your other better ones revolves around your Batteryman Solar and also the Battery Charger I mentioned before. You summon out your Batteryman Solar, and then from there use Solar's effect to send to the graveyard your 9-volt, and then you activate your Battery Charger to special summon out the 9-volt onto the field. This will activate the 9-volt and also the Solar as well, giving you the token off the Solar and the search off of the 9-volt, which you can then add your fuel cell to your hand. You will then special summon out the fuel cell to the field, and then you can go for the link 2 using the Solar and also the token you summoned out to then summon out your Summer Summoner. If you didn't want to go for the Solar, you could always use the 9-volt as well, since it's going to be destroyed. Going for the Summer Summoner, and then having these 2 cards on the field, you have the tribute needed for your fuel cell, but also you then on your opponent's turn being able to discard another card in your hand. Let's say just discarding that card can then give you the special summon of the 9-volt back onto your field, and then also give you not only a token off of the Solar, but also then the additional search of that other monster. From there, on your opponent's turn, you'll have your 4 monsters for your main monster zone, the Summer Summoner, and then an additional one to summon off of the following turn. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Always like updating the Batteryman deck. Like I said, it's one of my favorite Thunder decks to use, and one that I could say definitely needs some more support in the future for us to see any additional plays to use it. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.